I'd like to start the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting on August 11th at 7:15 via web meeting. Present are committee members Limpert, Kelly, and Glassburn. Also present are council members Broussard, Council President Jones, Councilwoman Williamson, Finance Director, Planning Director, and HR Director, and guests or guest. On the agenda is 2020-83 and 2020-84. 2020-83 is an ordinance, that's 84. 83, an ordinance enacted by the State of North Olmsted, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, hereinafter referred to as municipality, in the matter of the hereinafter described improvement and request cooperation of the County of Cuyahoga, and hereinafter referred to as county, and in declaring emergency. Mrs. Lieber, you going to take this on?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the county's boilerplate agreement to jointly participate in the resurfacing of Clegg Road. So we had previously reported to council that the city had received funding from NOACA, and that later Cuyahoga County came on board to offer funding, and this is the formalizing that relationship. The county will pay 60% of the engineering cost. They'll also split construction costs with us for the portion that's not covered by NOACA, and they'll also manage the construction. So all these are good things. So this is the document that just officially enters into that agreement with Cuyahoga County.
Is the scope just in North Olmsted's borders, or does it extend anywhere into Westlake?
It's just in North Olmsted.
Okay. And I know you were reaching feedback. Do you have any comment just on, I know you were soliciting feedback in general on the project. Did you have any comments around that at this time?
Just that we are getting feedback. I don't have an updated number as of now, but over the weekend, I think we are close to 40 responses to our online survey. So we'll keep promoting it and pushing it out and hoping to get more feedback. But in the time of COVID, you know, even 40 surveys are shows a lot of interest in our community in this project. So that's a positive thing.
Thank you. When's the cutoff again for that feedback?
August 21st.
21st. Any questions from committee? Questions from council? All right, no, I think that's great. I'm glad we're getting the county to participate in as large of amount. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2020-83 and ask for a second.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Next on the agenda is 2020-84, which is a ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to allow the resurfacing of Brook Park Road from Lorain Road to the East Corporation limit in the city of North Olmsted, declaring an emergency. Mrs. Liebert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council, you might be becoming familiar with this process that for these partnership projects with the state, there's always a two-step legislative process. The first being preliminary legislation declaring our intent to cooperate with them, and then the final legislation that has a little bit more detail and includes the final exact price tag of what our share will cost going into the project. So this is the first of those two pieces of legislation. It will be an ODOT let project, which means they will bid it and they will run the project. So they plan on putting it out to bid right at the very end of this calendar year for construction in 2021. So we will also be having that final piece of legislation here in the coming months. And we'll also need to provide the city share towards that project before the end of the year. So as a reminder, the scope is about a 2-mile stretch of Brook Park Road. It's all of Brook Park Road between Lorraine Road and the eastern city limits. The scope is just a simple resurfacing. That the estimated project cost where we're at right now is close to 2.6 million. And the city's share of that, we're estimating at this point that we'll need to contribute about 1.2 million. And so that will take into account our share of the resurfacing and then those items that ODOT does not cover. Notably, ODOT does not cover any full depth base repair to the road, which, you know, as far as the city goes and our service department feels that that's a critical part of any project to ensure a long-lasting road. And so that is 100% city cost. And as you know, with 4-lane divided highway and 2 miles, that's quite a bit of road to do full depth repair. So that is included, which will contribute to the city's cost. We're also adding a couple areas, 2 areas of landscaping and lighting near Lorraine Road at that triangle area where Lorraine and Brook Park dogleg off, and then also at the area of the I-480 overpass. So that's also city cost. So again, we're expecting our city contribution between the resurfacing, the base repair, and the additional landscaping and lighting to be about 1.2. A portion of Brook Park Road, a significant portion, touches our TIF district. So that is a potential source of funding for the city's share in addition to whatever permanent improvement funds we might need to use. So I think Carrie might be able to talk a little bit more about her thoughts about funding strategy. But this will be, you know, a long-term improvement to Brook Park that should last for the next 2 decades. So it's an expensive improvement, but it's a necessary improvement. And this will be a great way to get it done cost effectively with the help of ODOT. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
First, before that, Carrie, could you comment a little bit about funding strategy or what we're thinking around it?
We're going to be putting forward probably short-term notes. I just got something, I hadn't read it yet, but it was projecting what interest rates were going to be in the coming year. And if they stay flat, then that's fine. Then we don't have to go to bonds next year if we don't want to. But if they are going to start rising next year, then I do want to bond out our notes that we have, and then any projects for next year, which this would be one of them. A portion of the repayment source could be the TIF, but it doesn't have to be either. So I worry because some of the funding sources of the TIF was the incremental increase from the improvements that were done to properties in the TIF when it was created. I think, was it in 2012, around there? Yeah. And then, but as you know, with retail and real estate, they can keep requesting the amount of the project, I mean, the value to go down. And I worry that with where retail is going, that it might reduce the amount of monies that are going to the TIF every year. So I don't want to overdo it either, because this is definitely a legitimate permanent improvement street and storm project. So that's where my thoughts are now. And we will have to we'll have to borrow it so that it's ready to be given to them in December. So very soon.
So thank you. The other question then about funding. So do we have, I know we talked about doing some additional, not necessarily repair of the road, but some additional accoutrements around it related to landscaping. So is there like a hard cap on what we're going to spend without that, and then we would look at some other funding source, or is that still, I mean, we expect to, I'm just looking for what those ideas are as far as leveraging the TIF at a certain point for those type of items that would theoretically improve the value
Right.
of the area. And maybe that's where it would kick in if we started to experience some of those with the budget.
Right, and it would be where it would kick in as part of the repayment of the borrowing, probably.
Any questions from committee? That could be for Ms. Kopfer or Mrs. Lever. Questions from council? Well, I'm excited about this project. I think if there's any road that needs improvement, it's Brook Park Road, Clegg, obviously, but Brook Park, it'll be good to get that fixed and be really critical to that area. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-84 and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, it appears Director Lieber has something she'd like to share.
Thank you, Mr. Glassburn. Mrs. Lever.
Just due to
Go
the
ahead.
timing, the state has requested this to be submitted to them at our earliest convenience. If suspension could be considered, I would very much appreciate it.
Yeah, and Ms. Lever, we did talk about that. I think that's where I had the snafu last week at the council meeting. I think it was on suspension originally on the agenda. Any issues from committee with suspension related to the deadline? Okay. Then I will revise my motion. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-84 with suspension and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. With the agenda being complete, I'll conclude the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting at 7:27.